Hi everyone, I'm Sophie Milburn, editor of the MSP Channel Insights portfolio, and today I'm joined by Carlson from Slide. So to start, could you introduce yourself, share the story kind of behind Slide, and what gap maybe you saw in the market and why you felt the need to share that kind of fresh approach?
Yeah, sure. Nice meeting you all. Everybody, my name is Carlson Choi. I'm the COO of Slide. I think it was really interesting when we started this project. Really, the gap that we've been filling is that if you take a hard look at the backup and the BCDR market for business continuity and disaster recovery, there's been a lot of great stable solution in the market. I would say it's been built probably well back in 15 plus years ago. And I always describe to see that that's kind of one of the area that hasn't had a lot of innovation
Right.
for a good set of reasons because it's a stable of the security stack for MSP. It is the best and last line of defense. But for that same reason, people said, "Wow, do you really want to touch it? Is there an opportunity to build?" So I can think that you take a look at for the over 15 years, these tools been have incremental improvement, but hasn't had radical shift. So when we took a look at that, there was clearly called out a market opportunity to go, how do we bring brand new innovation to the backup market? Specifically starting with BCDR, starting with blank piece of paper and say, what would you do for the next 15, 20 years? So I think that's one of the key driver really got us to start thinking about it. The other side is we also, a lot of the two co-founders for the company Slide were also ex-Datto executive, one of which was Austin McCord, the founder of Datto, and then Michael Fast, who is our chief legal and human resource officer. What they found was that since the transition of Datto to the new owner, they hear from a lot of MSP partners, where the MSPs, because the reality is that the product is not just the technology. There's a lot of element that wrapped around, right? The people that you deal with every single day, the processes that you work into place, and just in general, how easy is it to do business with? And I think a lot of the partners just found themselves missing that, we would call them the magic. So Austin and Michael saw this opportunity and say, I think this is a great time to let just not only refresh and bring the next generation of backup and BCDR to the market, but also really to address what the demand of the market from the MSP point of view.
Amazing. That was a great start. I feel like you've slightly
Yeah.
touched on my next question, but I'll ask anyway to get a bit
Yeah.
more into depth. As you mentioned, it's kind of coming from that experience with Datto. So what were
Mhm.
kind of the biggest frustrations with legacy built up and recovery platforms that have maybe
Mhm.
directly shaped the way that Slide kind
Yeah.
of has been built and approaches things now?
Yeah, I think there's a couple key interesting thing. If you think about it, right? I touch a little bit on the magic side of the equation. I'll start there, and I'll talk specifically some of the differentiation and uniqueness that got us there. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. Is that that magic? We would call that. There's really four key element that makes it magic uniqueness working with Slide. One, we call it the partnership. We are an exclusive MSP business. We will never sell direct or around the MSP, we will call them to the end client. Uh, that is probably one of the core value that made it the magic happen in the past and now going forward. The other thing that I've already touched on a little bit is that we are heavily a product organization. From a talent and resource, we skew heavily on, let's say, for every non-engineering product resources what we hire three. So you can imagine there's a lot of you know, good and bad about it, right? The good part is we get great product. Bad part is we over-engineer everything. So the result is MSP get the benefit of it, right?
Mhm.
But then to answer your question, how the gap that we have addressed, I think it's really interesting to having a chance to step back, because you've been in the, American saying that you've been in the grind for a long time in the machine.
Yeah.
You just go, yeah, it's great. But then you step back and go, wow, wait a minute. There's just some key thing that does not have existing, we call it existing available legacy product in the market. Um, One, I think security. It's really interesting. If you think about a backup, it's not just backup. BCDR is just not BCDR. It is a security platform. It is your best and last line of defense, what you need. And when you think about that standpoint, it is actually not if you're going to get ransom, it is when you get ransom.
Yeah.
So we take a really deep look at the security side equation where we look at things including, MF, multi-factor authentication.
Mm.
Many folks said, can you turn it off? No, why would you turn that off? This is the most secure platform to the point
Yeah.
of a simplicity to being able to, every piece of the data on our platform are what we call encrypted, even at rest. So
Right.
if a bad actor take the disk out of the appliance,
Hmm.
they can't do anything. It's fully encrypted. This is a really important element.
Right.
And even allowing when MSP decide to encrypt the data, they even put their own passkey in existing solution. Every time you do your own passkey, your own encryption key, they will have to restart the backup. In our case, you can rotate them, which is the best practice. So security is one of the critical area where we saw importance. And then there's the scalability side of it. We hear from the MSP talking about a lot of existing solution. If my client data set grow, I need to go out, deploy a technician, install more drives, or replace the appliance. Or for that matter, the other way around, if they go to the cloud solution, they have to go back and again redeploy. There's a lot of unnecessary labor involved. So in the slide world, we kind of understanding that all of our appliance actually comes with more than enough storage, physical storage, but we
Right.
provision them by software. Last but not least, speed and performance. It
Mm.
really comes to expect that the world that we're used to now, when you pick up your phone, it just works instantly.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that we bring that as place. We think even about the as simple as user interface. When you click on something, how fast does it take to do something? And I tell partners I do my demo, I will always say it takes less than 3 clicks to do a simple task. And when
Hmm.
they start using it, they go, wow, even the most complex text takes 3 clicks. So that speed and performance comes delivered with a brand new software platform on
Hmm.
top of solid state technology. So really delivering that experience. Kester and I were in a roadshow a couple of weeks back in Dublin.
Hmm.
One of the MSP asked, "Do you guys have a single sign-on capability?" I said, "Yep.
Hmm.
Looking at our plan right now is I estimate about 2 weeks from now it'll be released." And they go,
Right.
"Oh, thank you." 45 minutes later, at the end of that session,
Hmm.
I got a Slack message from my product engineering team and say, by the way, SSO has been completely validated and tested. It's now being released to our partner. And I'm like, okay, sorry, I lied. It's actually done. It
It's
just the
now.
speed and the velocity of getting features out. So to us, and all of these are building on top of the foundation of a MSP only business. So that's kind of how we've been, really find ourselves in a unique space in this case.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned there, you are taking a 100% kind of channel only approach. Why is that kind of so important to focus exclusively on service providers, and how does that
Mm.
kind of influence your product decisions kind of day
Yeah.
to day, do you think?
Yeah, we found that I think if you take a look at this, with the root of where Austin came from, right?
Mhm.
Data success is purely on MSP. And then in between time, between Datto and Slide, while the team is actually working on this project, I actually co-founded another company called Quark
Right.
with Austin. And guess what? It's also in MSP space. And I think being in that space, you realize that, you know, MSP is an ecosystem. If you know how to respect it and
Yeah.
work with them, they will help you. They are your sales force. They are your team. They are what
Right.
we call, at Slide, we call them partners.
Mhm.
So to us, that partnership is so crucial in that
Yeah.
we even train our new employee that coming in the team that remember partners are MSP,
Right.
customer are their customer. So that change is really crucial. I'll take an example. We respect this so much as Slide that recently we have a end client who is a roll up of a lot of smaller I would say uh, end customer. I won't say which industry, but that's point into
Yeah.
I would say medical practices. That might be a good way to put it.
Mhm.
And so they have 300 locations, but they have a centralized IT team that they work with MSP, and they kind of also mimic as an MSP for internal organization.
Right.
They manage to go through our filter system, got in their place, and then we go, wait a minute, it is an MSP, but it is not. It's an MSP
Mhm.
only for the entity, the medical practice that they own. So by definition, they are not an MSP. They don't serve anyone else but their own entity.
Hmm.
And then so we end up finding out the MSP who actually co-manage with them. So we go, okay, holding the value that we're MSP only at the
Hmm.
risk of losing a big 300 location opportunity. We went to
Hmm.
the MSP and said, I'll take a name. His name is Kester. This is Kester. We end up finding that one of your client came to us and we deeply apologize that there's no intention of going direct. We need to work with you in order to talk to this client, and we need to fire them together, at least for us, because I need to take those advice back and have you manage it because we respect that channel that much. We did
Right.
that conversation. It was probably one of the hardest one because you think about a growing business,
Yeah.
300 device opportunity is big for us. But at
Yeah.
the same time, holding that value was exactly what's needed. And of course, conversation went well. And
Mhm.
client was a little surprised that they got their hand caught in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And while the MSP says, we highly respect it.
Hmm.
This is what we would love other vendors to do because other vendor in the market would be great. Let me put my direct team for us. We're going to
Yeah.
work with them. And a week later, we end up finding both the client and the MSP together found that this is the
Mhm.
value chain that they want to work with. So we end up earning their business and the MSPs now. Wow, we're going to expand this relationship beyond the client. So for us,
Yeah.
those are the example that we really find that it pays back. They're the one who's going to defend us. We're going to defend them together.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the channel's about kind of relationship building just as much as
Yeah,
it is about the technology. So
yeah,
I like that approach. And Slide is also kind of positioned as being free from, outdated infrastructure. So what does
sure.
that actually kind of mean in practice? And how
Yeah.
does that translate into, faster recovery and better outcomes and all of those things for partners and clients?
Yeah, I think this is the most interesting thing, right? I think when you get start, it's kind of almost very taunting and scary to start with a blank sheet of paper.
Hmm.
But being able to start with a blank sheet of paper, you are effectively, free from all the tech debt over the year. Now,
Right.
not saying that we won't have any. We're going to be building them up from ground up, but
Hmm.
being able to start from a clean sheet of paper, but knowing what you're building, you have a chance to think about what is that we needed for the MSP for the next 20 years, right? So I think it's one side of the element. The other side is that think about this. The foundation that was built with the legacy product was
Hmm.
15, 20 years ago. The tools are completely different.
Yeah.
And, I always joke about it. It's kind of using, hammer and screwdriver versus a power tool. So
Right.
we have this additional advantage having some new tools in place
Mhm.
uh, to bringing in, and building up these tools much more modern way. And then third, the other thing is probably having when I say that second tool is also including having the benefit of the world of AI. What would
Mm.
AI do in making things better for the partners
Yeah.
and for speed and weight? Uh, and then last but not least, probably most interesting is having, people in our team with a pedigree of a different walk of life. Many of us might have rooted in the data world, but
Mhm.
also now becoming a lot more of an employee now based on non-data folks because they've been other walk of life. So when you bring those experience together, you'll be able to say, wow, those career experience also teach us how to do things differently. To say, I saw this use case,
Yeah.
this is different. And when it really comes down to it, it helps us to be able to deliver some uniqueness to the point that I'll always go back to examples that I get asked this question, do you guys use AI? I said, okay, first of all, I'm not going to put AI power BCD or AI power, we have agentic AI. Personally, I feel like that's a marketing tactics. Why don't you show how it works in that system? So
Mhm.
we do that quite a bit on a roadshow demo. And maybe the next time we're around your area, we'd love to have you come to our
Yeah.
roadshow.
Love
We
that.
actually don't demo the product. We
Mhm.
actually tell a story around it, right? We
Right.
would say, MSP, what are the most use case scenario you found? Your client environment get ransom,
Mm.
and all your best tech happen to be on vacation, which happens more than often than they like.
Yeah.
And the client calls, say, I need to get back now out on a deadline. And the
Mm.
owner, most of the time, they can figure their way out because they're technical and rude.
Yeah.
But it would take them times. What we do is that within our product, there's an interface called the slide chat,
Right.
and the chat allowed them to use natural language that says, "My client, is environment got ransom. I would like to spin up a brand new environment on the cloud to get it back up and running.
Right.
And then you will see the environment getting built up in the sequence that environment needs to be. And typically within 2 to 3 minutes is done it up, including setting up networking, cloud, all the servers spinning back up. Now, can you do that manually in the interface? Absolutely. And by the way, inside it still be pretty fast.
Right.
But the reality is that an owner or anyone can use some natural language to recover an environment. And then people ask how do they do that? That's where AI comes in. AI is behind this to translate in natural language and ask you a question and guide you to build that. But we're not going to advertise. We have AI, agentic engineering, all the fun words. We
Right.
show it by operationalizing it. And every time when we see an MSP, when they see that demo, their jaws will just drop. Them like, wait,
Yeah.
how do you do that? And it
Uh,
really helped them, the creatives, start thinking about how they operate, who
mm.
they can bring into place. How can they redeploy their valuable resources to other area of the business?
Right. I think that's so important as well because I feel like it does get thrown around as a bit of a buzzword. A lot of, oh yeah, we're using AI, but I really like
Yeah,
obviously being able to see it
yeah,
in practice and straight up in your demos and things. That sounds really good. And sort of maybe with AI and with the things that we know are kind of coming up, what would you say you're looking forward to in the next couple of years in the channel in general, and what do you kind of see,
yeah.
Slide participating in that?
Yeah, I think for us, probably one of the things that, you probably saw some of the information and know, we recently receive a Series B, a $70 million investment in
Mhm.
uh, this rapid growth company. The excitement for us more than anything else is, expanding our business into the EMEA market, which is, I think, why we're in this conversation. I think with year one, we had huge success when it comes to, the US expansion and Canada. We have now embraced close to 1,000 MSP partners in less than a year, which is an
Wow.
incredible response, I think, of what we have
Yeah.
seen. But now we have now, as we call it the crossing the pond project,
Mm.
bringing in Kester, who's helping us oversee the business in EMEA, growing that, and several other folks in the team. Now we have at least half a dozen of the team. We established an office space in the UK and Maidenhead.
Mm.
For us, the excitement in this coming year is really that expansion and bringing that magic back to the EMEA market.
Mm.
We're going to be learning. We're going to be learning a lot of
Yeah.
requirement changes because year one, we also thought we knew what we needed, but
Mhm.
we also found out new things that we have to evolve
Yeah.
alongside the MSP partner, and having all the tools that we talked about earlier allow us to be able to move fast and respond quickly. And we expect to see the same exact thing in the EMEA market.
Amazing. Well, I'm definitely excited to see what happens. So watch this space and thank you
All
so
right.
much for your time today.
Great. Thank you.